stress up the groove, the energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking?
Hi guys, Paul here, Creative Director at UA Visuals. Now 2020 was a crazy one, and like many of you, we had to adapt to a new way of getting work done outside of a traditional office setup. So we wanted to show you guys our setup for maximizing productivity and minimizing distractions when working from home. So here's our 2021 home studio setup.
That might change my number on you. Yeah, that's how you react when people took a slumber on you.
So let's start with the big guns, the workhorses, the hardware. So we're currently using the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. This thing can handle our 4K footage with ease, and as it's a laptop, we can take it on the go when we're on location editing or wrangling footage. We also made sure to get a protective hard case and keyboard cover, which just helps to keep unnecessary dust and other elements from getting into the laptop when out on location. Now, working off multiple screens can take a toll on the GPU, especially when those are 4 and 5K. However, to ease the processing load when in the studio, we are running these screens through an external graphics processing unit, or an eGPU for short. Now, we chose to use the Razer Core X Chroma eGPU with a Radeon graphics card. Now, the advantages of using an eGPU is pretty simple. Additional graphical power that is upgradable. So as the graphics cards get better, you can upgrade as you require. And it's basically future-proofing your setup, especially now that we're shooting with the A7S III. But our MacBook did have a couple of panic crashes when loading the footage onto a timeline in Premiere. But once the eGPU was connected, we haven't had that issue. Now, it's simple to upgrade and set up and very quiet. In fact, the fans rarely spin on. Usually only when the screensavers start up do I hear these come on. Oh, and it has LEDs. We love LEDs, but it's basically a light flex. And you can get the same unit without the lights for around $100 less. Now, these lights are programmable if you're running a Windows OS using the Razer Synapse 3, but unfortunately at the time of recording, no such driver exists for Mac, so you'll just have to settle for the default strobing LEDs that come out of the box. The eGPU connects to the MacBook through a single Thunderbolt USB-C port, which as well as transferring data, it has a 100-watt charging capacity to keep the MacBook powered. The two external displays are connected through the display ports on the back, and it has multiple HDMI and USB ports for any other additional peripheries you might want to attach, such as wired keyboards or phone chargers. Now, the latest MacBooks are famously known for their lack of multiple ports, and the most recent iterations only having Thunderbolt USB Type-C. So for wrangling at the home office and on the go, we use this multi-port adapter. It comes with the most common ports, but mainly we're after the SD and micro SD ports that come out of our cameras and drones. And to keep things streamlined in the office, we've attached some Velcro tape to the underside of the monitor, which can be taken off if we need it on location. This can also be utilized to attach to the laptop when in the field. Now, the last piece of hardware isn't a necessity, but it's nice to have. As great as the MacBooks are, for whatever reason, their webcams still look like they're shot on a potato. So for any client meetings where you want to look your best and maybe flex on your setup, we're utilizing one of our spare Sony cameras that was just gathering dust and are now using it as a repurposed webcam. The one we use is the Sony 6500 with its stock 16 to 50mm zoom lens. Now, Sony only recently released this update for the Mac OS at the end of 2020. So now any of your Sony cams can be turned into webcams. Simply download their software called Imaging Edge, follow the installation instructions, then on your chosen video meeting service, select Imaging Edge in the video settings. Of course, if you have a later model MacBook, you might need another USB-C to USB adapter and long enough micro SD tether cable to attach to the camera so you have the flexibility to move it wherever it looks best. I just use a spare light pole as a mount, as it allows me to move the camera around when I need it and out of the way when I don't. Now, of course, as you want to use the laptop as a desktop setup when at home, it's coupled with a Blu-ray space grade keyboard and mouse. And to protect the wood and prevent the mouse from gathering dust, I have this metal mouse pad. No real reason for the metal other than it reduces the amount of random dust and fluff from daily use on a fabric one. Now, when we talk about productivity, at least for me, the more screen real estate I have, the more I can compartmentalize every area of it to maximize its use, which is the reason we settle on this 49-inch beast. Now, this monitor by LG is 5K, looks great when displaying 4K footage, and has a high dynamic range setting that really makes color editing a joy. Now, generally to maximize the screen space for optimal productivity, I like to set up a Finder window on the left with one pointing to any active projects I'm working on and the other for downloads, so copying footage or any other applications that I may not have on my pop-up menu. The center section I use for whatever application we're running, which is usually a mix of Premiere Pro or After Effects, and we can utilize the size of the screen to see the whole timeline without needing to zoom out very far, which is a major time saver. The right of the screen is used for Media Encoder for the output rendering of projects, as well as communications with work colleagues and friends that can easily be switched between using the multi-screen view on the keyboard. Now, being able to see all the different windows without needing to constantly resize is one of the key time savers that a screen of this size offers. Of course, it does come with a hefty price tag, but one we're happy to pay as the productivity advantages over time was worth the cost in the long term. Now, supporting the 49-inch workspace is a 27-inch LG 4K monitor mounted above, which can be used as a preview screen when reviewing footage, selecting a Spotify playlist, screen sharing when in a meeting, or even playing the odd movie, or PS4 on a Friday arvo when it's beer o'clock. Now finally, the built-in Retina 16-inch laptop itself is great for sending emails and just general web use. At a glance, it might seem like this setup is quite excessive, while my wife agrees, but each screen has a utility and purpose and has a positive impact on the amount of work we can process and produce daily. It might not work for everyone, but it works for us. Moving on to arguably one of the most important aspects of any creative business, storing and backing up your data. Now, nothing's more valuable to our business than the assets we've shot for our client. And in the event they want us to update a video we've previously shot or revise a photo set from a year ago, we need to have quick and easy access to anything that they're after, and not forgetting your own peace of mind that all your footage is backed up and safe. Now, we utilize an online NAS system where each and every one of our jobs are backed up and available to reach remotely. However, as a double redundancy, we've opted to also having a copy of all of our jobs locally on a 16TB RAID drive. Now, a RAID drive is a redundant array of independent disks and is mostly used as a means to reliably back up important data. Now, this can be set up in a couple of ways. RAID 1 offers redundancy through mirroring, so if you have a 16TB drive, it's actually two 8TB disks, and then you have 8TB of data, but it is written identically on two drives. Now, I've opted for the RAID 0 option, which gives use of the entire 16TB as it splits the data across the drives. However, this does mean that there are no redundancies if one of the drives fail, so there is a risk there, albeit a low one, but as we've already saved all our assets backed up on a NAS server, it's a calculated risk. Now, as the RAID drive is a disk drive, the read and write speeds are slow compared to an SSD drive. So for our day-to-day work and current projects, we utilize a 1TB Samsung SSD, which has super quick read and write speeds, perfect for matching the performance of the MacBook Pro. As we sometimes edit on the go, we've added a heavy-duty Velcro strip to attach it to the laptop so it's locked in place securely when editing on location or, say, in the car. Sound design is an underrated element of post-production, and no studio setup is complete without a good set of monitor speakers. We've found that these Edifier studio speakers work great for checking audio mix levels and are a steal at the price these are going for. Now, due to the width of the monitor, we had to pair these with some speaker stands and desktop angled speaker mounts to point these down for optimal use. Now, these angled speaker mounts were actually supposed to point desktop speakers up, but we just flipped them around and they work great. Now, I share an office space with my wife, so I can't always be blasting away the same track on the timeline again and again as I edit. So I also use some Sony XM3 noise cancelling headphones to get the work done. These things are up there with the best on the market for noise cancellation and helping you focus when there's a deadline on. The battery life is also outstanding. Even with noise cancelling on all day, I only need to charge twice a week. Additionally, they're now a generation old as Sony has released the XM4s, so you can probably pick these up for a pretty competitive cost. When these are not in use, they sit on this headstand, which is just a nice piece of wood that matches the rest of the desk wooden aesthetics, and it's somewhere to keep them when they're not in use. Which brings us to the desk layout. When planning for the desk size, the monitor was the first thing we considered, and then working out the space necessary to not feel too crowded once all the hardware was in place. I estimated I'd need a desk about 3 meters wide and about 75 centimeters deep, but the only issue is that's something I need to have custom built. So I did. Well, not the wood itself, I let a professional do that, but then I coated, sealed, added some legs and decided to cut an edge off one side to open up the office space we had. as I figured essentially that space wouldn't be utilised much anyway, and I could use that space to store additional equipment underneath the desk that's still easily accessible. In keeping the space minimal, I opted for floating shelves to hold the more expensive equipment, a simple office cabinet for audio, charging and lighting equipment, and a wall-mounted storage cabinet for arranging all the different types of batteries we use. I have a whiteboard to keep track of upcoming shoots and projects at a glance, and a notepad for the day-to-day tasks to keep productivity flowing. I installed a power outlet and have a space for charging when getting ready for a job. It also has USB outlets for quick charging of headphones and other Bluetooth devices. The laptop sits on this wooden stand holder, which by elevating it gives space for hard drives to live underneath and a better eye line for me when checking emails. For the office chair, I went with form and functionality with this Eames replica leather office chair. It's comfortable enough for long stretches in front of the screens, but also in my opinion, it just looks dope. Now to some of my favourite things to help your studio area feel lively and welcoming as a place for work. Firstly, adding functional LED lighting. If you've seen our last video on our man cave setup, you would be familiar with these types of programmable lights. I've got these scheduled to come on at 8:30 as a sunrise setting and then switch to a productivity light setting around 9 AM for most of the day. Then if there's any late night work on, I like to set to a twilight setting to keep it easy on the eyes, but sometimes I just get adventurous. I also love to offset all this technology with a little bit of nature, so I have a couple of low maintenance plants around the area to add some colour to remind me that there's life outside these walls when work gets a bit too hectic.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
Lastly, work hard, play hard. When it comes to beer o'clock, there's nothing wrong with powering up the PS4 or Switch to enjoy a little video game action to finish out a long week. So there you go guys, a look at our current home studio setup for 2021. Hope you find some inspiration and tips to maximize productivity and minimize distractions. Let us know if there's anything in there that you'd like to know more information about. We've linked all the gear in the link below if you want to check it out. And also don't forget to check out our Drone Masterclass Academy to up your drone game. See you guys on the next one.